Chapter 119, Acquaintances. "Goodbye, I'll see you later," he said, hoping to receive a response from Fiona. But all he got in return was a nod before she refocused her gaze on her surroundings, scanning the area for any signs of other villagers who might have already awoken due to the bright morning sky. With nothing else to do but move forward, Orion kept walking until he finally arrived at his hut. He quickly pulled open the door and greeted his mother and Gina, who were already awake and likely starting their day. They exchanged morning pleasantries, and he learned that they had only woken up a few minutes ago and were stretching their bones before starting their daily chores. Rena was still asleep, and he didn't want to disturb her peaceful slumber. So he made his way to the backyard to fill the water tank. After finishing the task, he readied himself for a quick bath and grabbed a juicy kalna fruit to snack on the way to the village chief's compound. "Already leaving?" Celeste asked as she gazed at her son. Despite her reluctance to have him become a warrior, she knew that she couldn't prevent him from pursuing it. Moreover, with Orion's 6-star inner strength potential, she was certain that important members of the village, including the village chief, would also want him to become a warrior. Though feeling powerless, she could only nod in understanding as Orion replied, "Yes, I don't want to be late." "All right, take care of yourself and don't let anyone influence you into doing something reckless," Celeste replied with a stern voice and a serious expression to emphasize her concern. But before she could finish her sentence, Gina cut her off and said, "See you later, brother. Take care." Orion nodded with a thin smile as he watched their mother shoot a glare at Gina. He waved his hand at both of them and quickly left before Celeste could call him back. Watching as Orion left in haste, Celeste let out a dissatisfied exhale, accepting the fact that her son was determined to become a warrior. She stood up and headed to the backyard to arrange the clay pots she had made the previous day, intending to sell them in the market square. She hoped they would sell quickly so she could leave early to prepare the gift she had arranged for her son. A warm smile illuminated her face as she thought about her son's success. "At least I can be sure that he won't lack anything," Celeste muttered to herself contentedly. "Gina, come here and help me." Celeste suddenly screamed, calling for the attention of her youngest daughter. Meanwhile, Orion was making his way towards the village chief's compound when he suddenly realized that he had forgotten the wooden chip that Thak had given him. His mind had been preoccupied with thoughts of how to handle Fiona's sudden anger towards him, leaving him feeling tired and frustrated. He let out a deep sigh and continued walking forward, knowing that he couldn't turn back now without risking being late. As Orion approached the gates, he noticed the new guards stationed there. 2 women, lean and muscular, with the outline of their muscles clearly visible beneath their tulgas. He could tell from their rigid posture that they meant business. They noticed him, and their gaze swept over him from head to toe, assessing him. Without warning, their spears crossed, barring Orion's entry. One of the female guards, her face completely serious and unreadable, scanned Orion up and down once more before demanding, "State your business at the village chief's compound." Orion immediately responded, "I was told to come to the village chief's compound after the awakening ceremony because I have the chance to awaken my inner strength and become a warrior," Orion explained. His 6-star potential was the only thing that he kept silent about because he didn't see the need to reveal such information unless he was asked to. After finishing his explanation, the tension on the woman's face eased a bit, and she glanced at the other guard, who gave her a nod of reassurance. "Your chip." The woman refocused her attention on Orion, but he let out a frustrated sigh and shook his head. "I forgot to bring it," he admitted. Instantly, the woman's expression shifted, and she nodded in understanding. After a brief exchange of unspoken communication with her partner, she turned back to Orion and said, "Wait here." With that, she disappeared into the compound. After several minutes, the guard returned with a young boy, who Orion immediately recognized. He was one of the few villagers who had successfully the evaluation and possessed the gift of transforming not only into a majestic horned golden eagle, but also 3 other strange birds. Despite never having spoken before, the boy had already made a lasting impression on Orion, one that would be hard to forget. Nevertheless, the same could be said for the boy, as his eyes widened in surprise the instant he laid eyes on Orion. After all, not only had Orion awakened a rare six-star potential, but he was also the only person in the awakening ceremony who would be able to receive a special gift from the chief. Moreover, the fact that Orion often hung out with two unattractive girls and carried himself with a maturity beyond his years, much like his older brother, had made a lasting impression on the boy. As such, when the guard pointed her finger towards Orion and inquired, "Is he one of the people meant to be present?" The boy's face lit up with recognition, and he nodded his head immediately in response. "Yes, and he's the one with the highest evaluation rating," he said. He turned to Orion with a friendly smile, realizing that building an acquaintance with someone like him would be beneficial since they would be working in the same dangerous line of work. The guard's surprise was evident on her face as she heard that the young man standing at the gate had the highest evaluation rating. She quickly recovered and nodded her head, glancing over at her colleague who had also heard the boy's remark. Then, turning her gaze back to Orion, she said, "You may go in, but please don't forget your chip next time to avoid any inconveniences." Chapter 1:20. The lecture, Orion's expression relaxed as he nodded his head in understanding. After all, forgetting his chip was merely a mistake. As he walked into the compound, he was greeted by the boy who was still staring at him with a friendly smile. "Thank you for saving me the time," Orion said, appreciating the boy's assistance. However, the boy shook his head and replied, "Don't worry about it. I'm sure any of the others would have done the same." He paused briefly before extending his hand and introducing himself. "My name is Grim." Seeing this, Orion also stretched out his hand for a handshake and said, "I am Orion." He felt Grim's grip tighten briefly before they separated, still engaged in a little chat. "Have you awakened your gift yet?" Grim asked curiously. "You and Gorg are the only ones who haven't awakened your gifts. As someone with a 6-star potential, I'm curious to know if you've awakened your gift yet, and what kind of gift it would be." "Yes, I have," Orion nodded his head. "I just awakened it yesterday." As Orion finished speaking, he watched as Grim's eyes widened in surprise before he quickly recomposed his expression and asked, "Can I see it?" Grim cleared his throat and corrected himself. "I mean, is it possible for you to show me what it is?" Orion nodded thoughtfully and responded, "But not now. I can already guess that I am a little late, and we don't know what they might do to us if we arrive late on the first day." Although Grim's reaction to his gift had surprised him a little, Orion immediately understood. Awakening a gift was nothing out of the ordinary, as everyone who passed adulthood had experienced it. However, his gift was particularly unique. He had a 6-star potential, and the prospect of discovering what kind of gift he would awaken was incredibly exciting. Grim let out a disappointed sigh and nodded his head in understanding. Despite the setback, he knew that they would still be training together, so he would have plenty of opportunities to witness Orion's gift in action. "I suppose you're right," he replied. "It's probably best if we get going. We were just getting started with the meeting before the guard showed up." With their brief conversation over, they quickly made their way towards one of the large huts that they usually used for their awakening ceremony. As soon as they arrived, Orion's eyes scanned the room and rested on the sight of Mr. Tog and two unfamiliar men and women, all of whom shared one striking similarity. Their physical fitness was undeniable. "You're late," Mr. Tog said with a raised eyebrow. "Fortunately, you've arrived just in time for us to avoid repeating all the essential information you would have missed." Mr. Tog stretched out his hand towards the mat where the others were already seated, Ursa, Gorg, and the daughter of the village chief's messenger, and gestured for Orion to join them. With fewer mats available today, Orion nodded and quickly took the remaining space at the back of the group, while Grim darted forward to his usual spot at the front. Once everyone had settled in, Mr. Tog cleared his throat and began to speak. "Before we begin, there are a few things I want you all to keep in mind," he began, his eyes sweeping over the group. "The number one rule of being a warrior is to protect the village. No matter how strong or skilled you may be, if you are unable to fulfill this duty, then you have failed as a warrior. However," he continued, his voice filled with conviction, Naka has always blessed us with many warriors over the years, so no matter what happens, we will do everything in our power to support you, guide you, and help you reach your full potential. Ultimately, how hard you're willing to work and sacrifice to become a warrior is up to you. With that, Mr. Tog released a deep breath, signaling the end of his speech. Orion observed as Mr. Tog stepped back, and one of the men named Grulm stepped forward. Grulm began to explain the reason why potentials were classified as stars, and it had to do with the black crystal that had been around for generations in the village. He went on to describe how powerful and vicious the Vilker vines were, what would happen if they weren't able to destroy them, and how they were meant to be destroyed. He even mentioned a stronghold built outside the farm to stop the Vilker vines from advancing into the forest, and how the stronghold in the farm was meant to keep the tree nymphs in check and ensure the safety of the villagers working on the farm. However, Grulm kept something else from them and told them that they would have to see it for themselves, as it was a secret. Orion wondered what else Grulm was hiding, but understood that it was reasonable for warriors to keep certain things to themselves, considering their dangerous work. They couldn't reveal everything to the village. As Orion sat and listened to Grulm's explanations, he realized why Fiona had been so tight-lipped about being a warrior. Unlike the regular villagers who would have been intimidated and shaken by Grulm's vivid descriptions of the Vilker vines, Orion was eager to put his skills to the test and experience the thrill of battle firsthand.